Ladies and gentlemen, football season is here. Fall camps have opened up. SEC teams have started practices. So why not go ahead and talk about what could go wrong for each team? That's right. It is upset watch time here on Southeastern 14. We are going to touch on every upset game possible for each team in the 2023 season. So without further ado, let's get after it. Hello, everyone. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome to Southeastern 14. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications because I know you're going to like the content today as we're talking about what teams could upset each of the 14 teams in the SEC in the 2023 season. There's a lot of games to get to, so we're going to hop right into it here. Let's start with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Okay, everybody knows that Texas game, of course. Bama won narrowly last year. Texas is maybe the most talented team. That's even with LSU. That's how talented the roster is that Sark has over there. Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, all these guys. The question for Sark has always been, can he put it together? Can they get them to play well? They certainly play well against Texas last year. That's going to be a big game atmosphere, kind of a last shot for Texas to make some noise before they arrive in the SEC. So that is a game to watch, of course. Then you go all the way forward for Alabama, and they have Kentucky at Kentucky. They have to go on the road. This is after a very physical LSU game that will have meant a lot. If they lose to LSU in that game, does that linger and does that beat you twice going to Lexington? So that's something you got to look at. And then the Iron Bowl, always a crazy game, especially with Hugh Freeze now at the helm. It's going to be even more intense over there. So those are the three upset games have potential for Alabama in the 2023 season. Arkansas, the Mississippi State game comes on the heels of going to Tuscaloosa for Arkansas. Always just a maturity thing. How do you handle a bounce back if that doesn't go your way at Alabama? So we'll see how Sam Pittman and company do then. By then, Arkansas, I really think, could be rolling, and I think they should have momentum kind of going into that matchup with Alabama. What does it look like coming out of it? November 11th at home versus Auburn. Auburn just has dominated this series. They're 19-12 and won all time. I believe 8-2 in the last 10 games. So Auburn is always tough for Arkansas. And then same thing, Missouri 8-2 in the last 10 meetings with Arkansas. Crazy stuff happens. Missouri beat them last year at Arkansas when Arkansas was a favorite to win that game. So now they have to go on the road to Como November 25th. Always an interesting matchup there. Auburn, I think the only two games you could really consider them favorites in that I could see them losing, or maybe Cal on the road. And listen, I don't think they'll necessarily lose to Cal, but that is a long road trip, and it's the first road game in the regime there for Hugh Freeze. I don't care how long you've been coaching. I don't care, how experienced you are with SEC programs and things like that. Getting a program and figuring out, okay, here's how we do things on the road for the first time and all that kind of stuff, especially when you're going always to the West Coast. Always a little bit of uneasiness there just from a logistics standpoint as a coach and things like that. So that is one just to watch. I just want to see the maturity. How do they come out and play against a team that Auburn should be better than? But you got to pay attention to it because it's all the way out at Berkeley. And then November 4th at Vanderbilt. This is a game that is sandwiched between Mississippi State at home and then Arkansas on the road. Is this a little bit of a letdown situation for Auburn? Again, maturity. They should be more talented than both those teams, but going to Vanderbilt that late in the year, we'll see what the focus level is for the Auburn Tigers. Florida. Yeah, this tells you where Florida is. I think the only game that they'll be favored in, they won't be favored in many games, and the only game that I think they'll be favored in that they actually have a chance to lose is the Vanderbilt game. I just don't see very many games on their schedule that you could actually call an upset. I think it's going to be a rough year for Billy Napier and the Gators. So October 7th at home It's a home game, between the Kentucky and South Carolina road games. Just one of the few games they'll be favored in. So you got to see. Vanderbilt, of course, beat Florida last year. We'll see if Florida can jump past the Commodores this year and prevent them from upsetting them in the swamp. Georgia, obviously the prohibitive favorite to win the 2023 national championship. According to Vegas odds, they're way out ahead of everyone. This would be the third straight national championship. Everybody talks about how easy the schedule is, but these three games I think are tough tests. Going to Auburn is always tough. It'll be the first road start for whoever the new quarterback is on September 30th. Then you fast forward all the way to November 11th. Lane Kiffin coming in, calling plays. That'll be a great chess matchup between Lane Kiffin and then Glenn Schumann, Will Muschamp, and Kirby Smart over there on that defense. So it'll be interesting to see those two elements go against one another. It's also the week before the Tennessee game. Georgia, of course, that's the third one for them, November 18th in Knoxville. Just the biggest road game atmosphere that they're going to be on. And of course, Heupel system just creates problems for everybody, especially when you got noise and things like that. So they do a great job in that stadium. So those are the three upset potential games for Georgia in the 2023 season, as they are heavy favorites again to repeat as national champions. Kentucky. Yes, I think Kentucky will be a favorite at home versus Florida. This is kind of a trap game for them before the Georgia game. Imagine saying that Kentucky has a trap game against Florida, but I think Kentucky is the more talented team. I think Kentucky is the better coach team at this point. So I'm going to say Kentucky at home better be on upset watch against Florida, because I think Kentucky should win that game. November 4th away against Mississippi State. Got to go on the road. The cowbells are ringing. This is between Tennessee and Bama, two huge games for Kentucky. This is sandwiched right in the middle. This is a classic letdown spot. Can Stoops and company avoid that? And then November 18th away, Beamer and Stoops hate each other. Okay, they just do not like one another. They are the antithesis of what each other are all about. Can Kentucky control emotions and things like that away from Kroger Field as they go down to Williams-Brice Stadium? Listen, Kentucky at this point will have just faced Alabama. What are the emotions like? They've got a rivalry game the next week with Louisville. So South Carolina is a spot that, you got to be on guard for. I think Kentucky's the better team, but you got to be on guard for an upset there. LSU, September 2nd, Orlando. They're a 2.5-point favorite. They lost to Florida State last year. That's a huge game to start the year. It's really hard to call it too much of an upset, but I do think LSU is the better team. If that were to happen, I think LSU faithful would certainly feel like it was an upset. And so I'm going to say, Tigers better be on guard week one, ready to go against the Seminoles down there, not too far from Tallahassee in Orlando. How many of the Cajuns make the trip over? How many of the Baton Rouge faithful make their way over to Orlando? That'll be interesting to see there. October 7th, away against Missouri. This game is after the Ole Miss game for LSU. Things get weird in Como, okay? It is not easy going and playing at Missouri. Don't believe me? Ask Georgia last year. They should have lost that game against the Missouri Tigers. So LSU will have just come off two really tough games, Arkansas at Ole Miss, Arkansas at home, and then at Ole Miss. And then they've got Auburn the next week. So this is a road game that's kind of right in the middle of a grind there for LSU. They don't get their bye week until October 28th. So they will have gone, Florida State, Grambling, at Mississippi State, Arkansas, at Ole Miss, then Missouri. And Missouri is a physical team. That's a upset special to watch right there. November 25th at home, Texas A&M. We know what happened last year. This is a talented team in Texas A&M, regardless of what their record is at this point. They can beat anybody in the country at any given week. We've seen that with Alabama. We've seen that with LSU over the last few years. So also, too, is this right before an SEC championship game? Once again, I think it could be for LSU. So is the amount of focus there that needs to be? It was not last year. Has Brian Kelly's team matured? Missouri, September 30th, away, Vanderbilt. Listen, I just think Vanderbilt and Clark Lee are they're a more athletic squad, and they've gotten better. September 30th will be a test for Missouri, because I think Missouri is going to be a good ball club that could push for, third. If they had a great year, they could push for second in the SEC. They're that talented on defense. 9 returning starters on defense. Got a ton of seniors over on that side of the ball. I think the offense has improved. But like I said, Clark Lee, Vanderbilt, a little bit better. They've got the home field advantage in that one. However you want to handicap that with Vanderbilt. So that's one you got to look at, and it's before that LSU home game, right after a tough Memphis game. So it's kind of sandwiched in between, a little bit of letdown spot there. October 21st at home. This is when South Carolina and Shane Beamer really kind of get heated up and start going. So can you prevent the Beamer ball from getting rolling there at home in Como? And then November 18th, yes, I think Missouri will be a home favorite versus Florida. Just shows you where the SEC is at this point. And this is between the Tennessee and Arkansas games for Missouri. So, where's your focus at on that one? Mississippi State, Arizona, and Southern Miss are the only 2 teams I would put on upset watch for them. I don't think they'll be favored in too many games this year, because of I think it's a tough league, right? And I think Mississippi State is in a little bit of a year of transition. They're more talented than Arizona, but Arizona is more talented than they were in 2022. They have their quarterback back. They got some transfers in. Always got to watch early games, especially non-conference against Power 5 opponents. Things can get weird there. And then November 18th at home, it's a classic trap game before the Egg Bowl with Southern Miss, an in-state rival there, at least in other sports, maybe not so in football. But hey, they're going to try. The Golden Eagles will try to come in to Starkville and try to pull an upset there. Ole Miss, man, that is brutal scheduling on September 9th at Tulane, a team coming off a Cotton Bowl victory over USC. Willie Fritz really has that program going there. You would have to think when this game was scheduled, Ole Miss did not think this is the type of team they would be playing in that game, but that is a rough one early on, and is going to be a physical matchup for Ole Miss early on in the season. September 9th away. October 7th at home, Arkansas. Arkansas and Ole Miss is always a crazy game. It's been a high-scoring affair last couple of years. I think you're going to see Travis Williams and that Arkansas defense, which is going to play more man-to-man, is going to be more aggressive. Does that give Lane Kiffin the room to take more shots down the field? Who steps up at receiver for Ole Miss? I'm intrigued by that game a lot. So home game there, but Arkansas, I think, is a really talented team. November 25th away, the Egg Bowl. It's the Egg Bowl. Anything can happen, from guys hiking up their legs, acting like a dog, peeing on the goalpost. We've seen it all in this rivalry. So what happens there right before Thanksgiving in the Egg Bowl this year? South Carolina. South Carolina is at home against Mississippi State, September 23rd. This is between the Georgia and Tennessee games for South Carolina. Just got to keep your focus on, because that is a game I think that they should be favored in there in Columbia. October 14th at home versus Florida. Listen, even though I think South Carolina is the better team in 2023, history is on the side of the Gators. The Gators are 6-2 in the last 8 meetings. And Florida has always just kind of been tough for South Carolina to get over the hump against, especially with Billy Napier and the Gators just absolutely thumping South Carolina last year, 38-6. So got to be on guard for that one. And then November 11th, Vanderbilt. This is before a physical Kentucky game, after a Jacksonville State game. So, you kind of come off a little bit of a cupcake there. Got to get refocused before the Vanderbilt game, and then can you avoid looking ahead to that Kentucky game? So those are the challenges for South Carolina this year, I believe. Tennessee, they have a interesting start. Yes, look at those two games away against Florida. I think Tennessee is way better than Florida this year, but going to the Swamp that early, Florida is still going to believe that they're somewhat of a good team. At that point, all hope will not be gone yet for the Gators, even though I think they will probably already lost the game to Utah. They'll be jazzed up to get that first home SEC game. So we'll see how that goes. But that's always a intense rivalry there. Even last year, Tennessee was a much better team. Florida played them very, very, very closely in Knoxville. So we'll see what it's like in the Swamp. Then you turn right back around and you play a UTSA team, which may be better than Florida. It's crazy how good Jeff Traylor has that UTSA program going. Listen, they're 22-5 over the last two seasons. Have an experienced quarterback, have a ton of seniors coming back. They're not going to be daunted by this, okay? They may come in and, Tennessee may very likely blow their doors out, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game where we looked up in the third quarter and been like, hey, is UTSA still in this thing? Because they have experience, they have good quarterback play, they're well coached. So just be on guard for that after what could be maybe a sleepy environment after a Florida game on the road. People come in, they think, oh, it's UTSA. Maybe it's not as big of a game day environment. Might be an early kickoff type deal. Just one to watch there. And then October 14th at home. This is before a road trip to Alabama, Texas A&M. Once again, we said it with LSU. Texas A&M can beat any team any week because of the talent that they have. They are inconsistent. I'll give you that. They haven't shown consistency under Jimbo Fisher, but they can get anybody on any given week there from Aggie Land coming to Knoxville on October 14th. Texas A&M, let's talk about games they should be favored in. Auburn, Arkansas, and South Carolina. Auburn at home, September 23rd. This is the first SEC game in 2023 for the Aggies. First one for Auburn as well, but Auburn will have already had that road challenge over at Cal, so they've got to work out their road game logistics and stuff like that. So, listen, Hugh Freeze versus Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino, that's just a schematic matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing September 30th at home after the Auburn game and before Alabama. For Texas A&M, again, Arkansas, talented, KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, but I think I say home. I think they're the home team this year. That game, of course, is a neutral site game when it comes to it's in Jerry's World, and it's always a crazy matchup, but it comes at a time, like I said, after Auburn, before Alabama, for Texas A&M. October 28th, a home game before a road trip to Ole Miss against South Carolina. This is the annual crossover game that, thank goodness, will be eliminated because, even though I don't know how that ended up being the rivalry crossover for Texas A&M and South Carolina, but it is a classic letdown spot there for Texas A&M with a big road game to Ole Miss coming up the next week. And then Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to be better this year, but I think the only game that they'll be favored in, that they'll have a chance to slip up in, is UNLV. It's the fourth straight game in a row for them, a second road trip in a row after going on the road to Wake Forest. So that is the game that Vanderbilt needs to be on the lookout for. Guys, that is all 14 SEC teams and the upsets that they need to be on the lookout for. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you want SEC football coverage daily during this season, we're doing game predictions. We're doing every single thing that you can think of, top breakout players, these upset matchups, recruiting, everything that you want to know. It's right here on Southeastern 14. Chris Lee, Blake Lovell do a great job on this channel as well. So like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll catch you guys next time right here on Southeastern 14.